Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today is the start of another reading vlog. So, it has been 2 weeks since my last check-in, which is not what I like for these reading vlogs, but I've been really struggling to film for like a month now. I haven't gotten my mojo back since after the holidays. I also just haven't been feeling that great, and I've honestly been dealing with a lot of headaches for a couple of weeks, and that's made it hard to do much of anything, even read. So I've been reading, but I haven't read that much, or as much as I would like, but I feel like I say that in every video. So I'm just here to tell you what I have read. So in my last reading vlog, I was like 80% through the Rosie project, which I have here. And I finished this shortly after I filmed that clip. I read this for my work book club, and I actually ended up enjoying it. I remember in my last clip, I was talking about how I thought I was gonna like the way it ended. It was in a part where like I couldn't really tell where the plot was going and what the overall message of the book was, and if it went one way, I wouldn't have liked that overall message, and if it went another way, I would have really liked it. And it did what I thought. It went the direction I wanted it to go. I did give it a 4 out of 5 star rating. Definitely not like a new favorite or anything, but I had a lot more fun reading this than I thought I would, because I don't usually read like romances. It's a contemporary romance, and it was really funny. It kind of reads like a rom-com movie, and it has been optioned to become a movie, but it hasn't like made it very far in the process from what I can tell. I think like they had casted Jennifer Lawrence and then she like backed out of it, but that was a while ago. And actually in the back, when you read the acknowledgements, the author actually wrote this as a screenplay originally before turning it into a novel. So I don't know why they haven't made it into a movie yet. I think it would make a really good rom-com, and I hope they eventually do end up making the movie. And I know in my last video I was also talking about I was unsure about the Asperger's rep, and I've had a couple people in my comments who either are on the spectrum or know people on the spectrum who thought that the representation was pretty good. And I didn't see anything like obviously offensive to me. There was one thing that kind of bugged me, was that when the main character Don, and anytime he meets someone for the first time, he immediately tries to figure out or guesses or judges what their BMI is, which I found to be a little uncomfortable. But at the same time, that's kind of like part of one of his quirks, or it's part of him being on the spectrum. It's him like categorizing people. So while I didn't love that aspect of it, I realized that it is kind of just part of his character, but I know some people might find that kind of offensive. But yeah, the main character John, he learns and grows a lot through the end of the book, and I really enjoyed the overall message of it and the way that it ended. It's a bit of a slow burn romance. Oh, and also, I was reading this for my workbook club. I know I already said that, but one of the reasons why we wanted to read it was because it kind of has genetics as part of the premise. Toby, off. Okay, you can have that. The main character, Don, is a geneticist, and he's helping the girl in the story try and find her biological father. So that was obviously one of the things that we talked about in book club. Basically, the genetic stuff is like kind of ridiculous and also like super unethical. Like he sits down and to like run samples one after another like really quickly. That's really not how it would work. And also they're like collecting samples from all of these men who are potential fathers for her without like their consent and things like that. So all of that was really like not realistic at all. And at the end, they do kind of acknowledge that the way they gathered the samples was a little bit unethical, but they don't really go into it too much, and it's not something a real geneticist would ever do. So all of that was a little bit unrealistic, but that's forgivable because this is just like a fun little story. But that was an interesting talking point during our book club meeting. Everybody else who read it, or most everybody else who read it, enjoyed it. This is the first book in a series, and I'm kind of on the fence about reading more. I'm kind of happy with leaving this as it is. I don't feel like I really need to read more, but maybe one day I'll pick up the sequels. The other book I was currently reading in my last reading vlog was 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. This is a YA sci-fi thriller. I don't remember how far I was into it, but I was like halfway into it, I think, and I was really enjoying it. I read this for my Patreon book club for January. Link with more information about my Patreon down below. But yeah, I finished this like a week after I filmed that clip, and I ended up giving this 4 stars as well. It was a very enjoyable read. Definitely not like a favorite, but I read it so fast. It was super entertaining. So this is about a girl whose father is killed at the beginning of the book, or like before the book starts, and she kind of travels through different dimensions trying to track down her father's murderer, or who she thinks is her father's murderer. And what's really cool is I think we go through 4 total dimensions or alternate universes, I guess, and they're all really different. I loved how different they were, and you kind of get a little bit of different like genres because of the setting. Like one of the settings, I didn't even notice this before, but if you look on the front of the cover, this bottom city that's upside down looks like Russia. So one of the settings is kind of like a czar like setting in Russia, like a Russian revolution kind of setting. And that was maybe my favorite setting. I wasn't expecting that one, and it was so much fun. There's also one alternate dimension that's like they're underwater, like Earth has flooded and they like live underwater, which was kind of like this like sci-fi, I mean the whole thing is sci-fi, but it's like this sci-fi dystopian kind of world, which was cool. And there were just like a lot of twists and turns. Like I definitely thought this was kind of thrillery, a lot of surprises. It is a little romance heavy and there is a love triangle, but I didn't mind the love triangle. Definitely a little angsty for my taste, but not so much that I was like totally over it. So this definitely won't be for everyone. I mean, no book is for everyone. But I had a lot of fun with this one, and I'm definitely going to read more of the series. It's a trilogy, so I'm excited to see what happens in the next book because the way that it ended was really interesting. Okay, so since I finished those 2 books, I have started 2, technically 3 books, but I'm really focusing on 2 of them. One of them is this one, City Upstairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the shelf space book for January. I don't know off the top of my head when the live stream is going to be for this one. You know what? By the time I post this video, it'll have already passed, so it doesn't really matter. But this is my primary focus because I'm trying to finish it before the live stream, which will be like in early February. I am currently 164 pages, about this much, which I think is like 35% into it, and I'm not sure what I think of it. I'm not disliking it. I'm finding it interesting. It's just very different from what I expected. So like, you know, I went into this thinking it's a fantasy. It is a fantasy. It takes place in a made-up world and there is magic, but it doesn't read like a fantasy. It's got kind of a modern setting because there are like cars. There's also a murder mystery aspect. Honestly, this reminds me a lot of A Memory Called Empire, which is a science fiction book that I read last year. And at first I thought maybe I was a little crazy for like seeing those connections, but I've talked to a couple of people and they agree that there are some connections between the 2. There's like the whole murder mystery thing, and then also this like ambassador from a different culture who comes to like investigate the murder, and it's kind of got this whole like fish out of water sort of thing going on. But then there's this added element of magic. So I'm intrigued by it. I'd say when I got to the 25% mark, some really interesting things started happening. Like the part that I read last night, I was like, oh, what is that? What is happening? So some crazy stuff happened. There's like gods and things and a lot of politics. So it's kind of like a mix of some really interesting things. But I will say I'm not like totally sucked in. I don't totally love it. None of the characters are like jumping out at me or anything. But I'm very intrigued and I'm hoping to finish this in the next week. Even though it took me like 2 weeks to read 30% of it, I'm hoping to ramp up my speed a little bit and get to the end of this one because I really want to join in on the live stream for the Shelf Space Book Club. The other one that I have been really interested in and reading more of is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This one I've had on my TBR for a while. Like I actually put it on my fall TBR and then again obviously on my winter TBR. I'm technically buddy reading this with my friend Leanna from Leanna's Library, although I've done a terrible job of keeping her updated on where I am. I've been reading it kind of slowly. Been reading this also for about 2 weeks and I'm only this far in. 160 pages-ish. I'm really enjoying this. No surprise there. I know this is like Sanderson's earliest work and some people struggle with it, and I can see that it's not as good as some of his other stuff, but I can also see like the foundation of like his writing and everything, and I still think it's really good. The characters are interesting. I think the world and magic is super interesting, and I'm really enjoying it so far. There's definitely some politics going on, and I'm intrigued by all of that to see where that goes. It definitely has a really interesting opener, one that really caught my attention right away, so I definitely was sucked into this immediately, a lot more than I was sucked into City of Stairs immediately. But I've been trying to read more of City of Stairs and less of this, and also I only have this one physically, which always makes for a slower read for me, versus that one I actually have in all three formats, so I've been primarily reading it with audiobook and ebook at night. Okay guys, those are all the things that I have been reading over the last couple of weeks. I will try to check in with you guys in another 2 weeks and not make this vlog last too much longer. Hopefully you guys are having a good reading week, and I will check in with you later. Bye. Hey guys, so today is February 25th. It is the end of the month of February, and I'm finally here to wrap up this reading vlog. I filmed my last clip, I don't remember exactly what day, but it was like right before the end of January. So this reading vlog is covering probably like 6 weeks. I don't even know at this point, but I am trying to get back on track with my videos and reading vlogs and everything. So let me just catch you up on a bunch of things that I've been reading since that last check-in. Oh, and once again, I apologize for no life clip section in this vlog. I just really haven't been doing that. Although I should have, because the snowpocalypse in Texas happened last week, and that would have made for some pretty footage, but I didn't take any video. So in my last clip, I was talking about City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. I did already give my final thoughts on that book in my January reading vlog, which I posted recently, so you can go check that out, but just a quick recap is that even though towards the middle of the book, things were looking up and I thought that I was enjoying it more. I mean, I was enjoying it more in the middle, but things went downhill again before the end of the book. I thought the ending was a bit rushed. The magic stuff that was happening at the end, some of it was a little bit convenient. It's like an open magic system that doesn't have a lot of rules and stuff. I don't know. By the end of the book, I just like really didn't care about what was happening, and I didn't really like the way that it ended. Like, it was fine, but I just wasn't very invested in it. It was just a pretty lukewarm book, and I'm definitely not going to be continuing on in that series. I see why people like it, but it just wasn't that like entertaining for me. So I ended up giving that book 3 stars, and even though I'm not going to continue on in the City of Stairs series, I think the series is called The Divine Cities or something, I still want to read Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett because I think that it'll be very different, and I've heard from people who have read both that they are very different, so I think there's still a decent chance that I'm going to enjoy Foundry Side. But yeah, City of Stairs was just kind of meh for me. I also finished Elantris. I actually just finished it last night, so it took me forever to read this book. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, like I wasn't totally in love with it like I have been with other Sanderson books, but I just kept reading other things and I just was reading it very slowly. But I finally finished it last night and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving Elantris 4 stars. If you're someone who hasn't read any Sanderson before, I would honestly recommend reading Elantris early on in your Sanderson journey, because I will admit it's not quite as complex and sophisticated as his other stuff, so in that sense it did feel a little bit disappointing, but at the same time I kind of was expecting that because it is one of his earlier works. I still really enjoyed the world building and the magic. I just think it's creative and different and interesting. Like, I love the Elantris like disease that they have, and there's this whole like mystery element of figuring out why the disease is the way it is, because it didn't always used to be that way, and I really enjoyed the unraveling of that. And I also liked the characters. I will say that the characters are like really good. Like, they're not as morally gray as what we usually see from Sanderson, and I also think that you kind of get to see some of his character archetypes. Like, I could see that these characters were, I don't want to say earlier versions of some of his other characters, but I could see similarities between some of these characters and characters in his other books. So it's kind of cool to see like where things started from in a way. I did think some of the dialogue was a little clunky, a little on the nose. There was a lot of like explaining of things. I feel like Sanderson typically, I don't know, I guess in Mistborn, his magic system, he does explain it really well, but at least in Stormlight, like, he doesn't explain anything and kind of leaves it up to the reader to figure things out. In Elantris, there's a lot more hand-holding and a lot of like explanation of things, which was okay, but just not my favorite. I will say that there was a point in Elantris, like right as the Sanderlanche was getting going, that really surprised me. And like I was reading and my husband had like walked by and I gasped really loud and was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And he came like running out of the bathroom like, are you okay? Because I was like so distraught about what was going on, and I might have shed a couple of tears at that point. So I was emotionally affected by some of these things, and I thought the ending was really fun. There is a little bit of a Sanderlanche. It's not like quite as intense as some of his other books, but I still really enjoyed it overall. So yeah, I finished Elantris. I gave it 4 stars. I'm really glad that I've read it. And I actually have finished another book. One of the reasons why I took forever to read Elantris is that I started reading Cibola Burn by James S.A. Corey. It's the 4th Expanse book, and that one had me hooked like right away, and I could hardly put it down, and so I kept picking that one up over reading Elantris. I really enjoyed this installment in the Expanse series. It wasn't quite as good for me as book 3 was. I was saying in my Patreon Discord the other day that I think my favorite is book 3, followed by book 4, and then book 2 and book 1. So they kind of like got better and better, but then book 4 comes behind book 3 for me. But I don't know, I feel like that might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion. I feel like a lot of people really like book 4. It was really good, and there was this whole like biological aspect. Like there's a scientist who is a biologist in it trying to figure out things that are going on that I really enjoyed, you know, being into biology myself. That was one aspect of the story I really liked. But yeah, this Expanse book just was, you know, pretty action-y. I could hardly put it down. I really enjoyed reading it, and I ended up giving that one 4 stars as well, but it's definitely a high 4, so like a 4.5 that I was like rounding down to 4. I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to pick up the next book in the Expanse series. I'm really excited about reading the rest of these books and getting caught up to the new release that comes out in the fall. I also have been watching more of the Expanse TV show. I have finished the first 2 seasons at this point, and I'm really enjoying that as well. Okay, other than that, I am currently reading 3 books because I don't know what's wrong with me. At some point, I started reading The Wolf and the Whale by Jordana Max Brodsky, and I got about 30% through that one. That one is kind of like a historical fiction, historical fantasy. There is like a little bit of a magical element, and the main character is like an Inuit who's like two-spirited, has the body of a woman, but feels that they have the spirit of their father within them, so they feel like a man. I picked that one up because at the time I was like in need of an ebook. I read an ebook from my Kindle like every night before I go to bed, and I didn't have any of the other things I was going to read next in ebook form at the time, but I've had to put that one on hold, like just like pause it and put it on the back burner for now, because I have 2 other things that I am trying to finish before the end of February, which is in just a few more days at this point. But I am enjoying that book. It is pretty dark, like darker than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be heavy on the romance, which I really haven't gotten to that part yet. At 30%, there's not that much romance, but there has been like rape and some dark things happening, which I wasn't totally expecting, but I am definitely looking forward to getting back to that one, but probably won't be until February's over, because I'm also trying to finish Black Sun, which is right behind me. That is the shelf space book for February, and the live stream is the last day of the month. So I'm trying to finish it before the live stream so I can participate. I am about 50% through that, so I've actually been flying through Black Sun. It's been going really well. I'm listening to the audiobook as I read it, and I just think that the world building is fascinating. Like, I can't really say that a whole lot has happened, even though I'm 50% through it, but I keep wanting to pick it up and I'm totally engrossed, even though like action-wise, not a whole lot has happened, but I'm super intrigued about what's going on, and I think the world inspiration is really cool because it's like inspired by like Aztec or I don't know, like South American, Native American things. I probably should have done a little more research before I said all of that, but that's what I know off the top of my head. And I think the world building is super cool. The magic seems really cool. There's like some politics stuff going on that I'm really interested in, so I'm really enjoying that one and hoping that I can finish it in the next few days. I've only been reading it for a few days, so I do think I'll be able to finish it in time for the live show, which is very exciting. And then the last book that I am currently reading, that I'm currently 15% through, is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent, and I'm also trying to finish this one by the end of the month. This is my Patreon book club pick for February. It's adult historical fiction, and it's about the last woman to be executed in Iceland. I'm only 15% in, so still trying to get a feel for it, but so far it's intriguing enough. I'm interested to see where it goes. I've heard it's really emotional, so I'm a little bit nervous about that, but hopefully I enjoy it, and I think that in the very least, my book club will have some really good discussion about it. Those are all the things that I've been reading over the last month, and that I'm in the middle of reading now. I will try to get back on a schedule of checking in roughly every week with you guys so that I can get these reading vlogs going more consistently. But as you probably know, I've had a lot of really good things happening in my life lately, so I've just been busy with other things, and sometimes that just happens. Anyways, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye.